Hey guys, and welcome to another Method Alpha Dungeon Guide. I'm Chris Potter, and here with me is Zerps.
Hey, today we're gonna be looking at the dungeon Eye of Azsuna. This instance is a really strange one. Some parts of it we really liked, and some parts were just straight up irritating. Such as the first packs in the dungeon. They are not too difficult, but they'll have an AoE lightning effect, which will cause all the neutral mobs around it to come and fight for them. These neutral mobs are a pain in the ass, as they generally have really high HP and they take a long time to kill. This problem persists throughout the dungeon. The naga mobs themselves will do some cast, but you simply just need to interrupt them, and these packs are fairly easy.
The first boss you'll encounter is Warlord Parjesh. The boss really only has two abilities, and the first ability is the Call Reinforcements, which is going to call an ad to come and help the boss. The ads have a cast that can cause a lot of damage, so you need to make sure to interrupt them. The second ability is that when he reaches 100 energy, he's going to dash forward and then choose a target to throw a spear at. After 5 seconds, he will throw the spear in the direction of that person and it will hit the first thing that it hits, giving them a debuff, dealing high ticking damage. Now the idea behind this boss is that you can position the ads and the person fixated with the spear to hit the ads with the spear and kill them off. This would obviously save your healer some healing and it would kill the ads off faster. However, on normal difficulty, the ads died so fast and the spear did such low damage that we just cleaved down the ads before the spear was even thrown and just had our tank soak the spears. Now the next thing to be said about this dungeon is that there is a lot of skippable trash, which is definitely a good thing as most of the trash is annoying or it just takes a long time to kill. After the first boss, you can choose out of two directions of where you want to go, and we chose to go down towards the sea and towards the boats. Unfortunately, the Void Tendril pulled this trash here that we were meant to skip. It's a patrolling mob, so you're supposed to just wait for it to go past. If you do pull it, however, it does a slam ability in front of it, and it also does a cast that you can interrupt, which will stun everyone for 1 second, so just make sure you interrupt them.
To be able to encounter the next boss, you'll need to kill off some Arcanists to make the boss attackable. There are many Arcanists to choose from, but you'll really only need to kill 2. They are easy to deal with, they only really have one ability, which is a polymorph, and your healer simply just dispels it. The second boss we kill is Lady Hatecall. Her main ability is to cast a static Nova. You need to be standing on the sand dunes, but if you're standing in the water you will be taking a massive amount of damage and be stunned for 3 seconds. Now you may ask, why are you not standing on the sand dunes for the entire time? The reason for this is that she has another ability called Focus Lightning. It will spawn a void zone where the players are currently standing, and if you're standing on a sand dune, it will destroy it. Right now in the alpha, the destroying mechanic of the sand dunes is really not clear, so you need to make sure you're out of them to make sure you don't take damage. When she casts Beacon Storm, she will summon the water goblins to help her in the fight. When these die, they will explode, dealing high amount of damage in a 5-yard radius. They'll also apply a slowing movement speed debuff. The best way to deal with them is to let the tank pick them up and everyone else just simply AoE them down. The tank needs to be using a small CD when they're dying to not die, and the healer should simply just dispel the slowing debuff on the tank. Obviously the DPS and the healer should make sure to be 5 yards away from it. The last ability the boss has is the Curse of the Sea Witch. The player gets a debuff, and when it expires it will deal a high amount of damage in a cone in front of the player, knocking any players back if struck by the ability. We thought that you were meant to kill the small globules with this mechanic, but we didn't test it out. And we should also mention that this boss is not locked in a room or anything, and if you try to run away from her, she will start killing you.
After this boss, we made our way towards the Hydra boss, Serpentrix. There are some crab mobs to deal with on the way, but they're not really an issue. The most annoying thing, funnily enough, was actually these neutral seagulls flying around, which are so easily pulled accidentally by AoE, and for some reason they have higher health and they seem to hit harder than the actual trash itself as well. Although you could easily pull Serpentrix like really quickly, we recommend clearing the trash out of the area around the holes, as you're going to use a lot of the space during the encounter. This boss is considerably more difficult than the previous two. The boss's first ability is Toxic Wound. It will give a debuff to a player, and every second the player will drop a toxic puddle underneath them. The toxic puddles do stack up and they can deal a lot of damage, so the player with the debuff should move continuously and not stand still unless they have an immunity. We wiped on one pool because I thought life cooking would be enough to save me while I rolled through a 3-stack puddle, but I died very quickly while rolling through it. The boss will do a poison spit, spawning more pools of poison at players' locations, and these poison spits will travel faster or slower depending on if you are standing downwind or upwind of the boss. At 66 and 33% health, the boss will burrow underground and appear at a new location, as well as summoning 2 extra Hydra heads. The Hydras will do a cast that inflict damage to the entire group, and it should be interrupted as much as possible. The most efficient way to deal with these would be to focus down one of them first, so that you only have to worry about interrupting one of them. These are not too hard to deal with, just keep up on the interrupts and kill them as fast as you can. While we were doing it, we didn't really pay attention to the whole upwind downwind thing of the boss, or killing the Hydras too efficiently. This made it harder for us than it needed to be. Luckily for you guys, you have us to explain everything to you, so now you know you shouldn't have too many problems. You should also be careful of pulling these seagulls flying around as well, mid-fight, because if they get pulled during the fight, and the tank doesn't pick them up quick enough, with the other damage going on, it can really quickly kill a DPS or a healer off. After Serpent Tricks, we headed into the cove towards Deepbeard. Again, you can skip a lot of the trash by running around it. There are 4 trash mob types between Serpent Tricks and Deepbeard. The crab bombs apply armor reducing debuff, but they're not really anything to worry about. The Murloc packs have a bigger ad that increases the damage of all the other Murlocs around them by 75%, but you should still AoE down these ads as they're not really a problem. The Goblin Slave packs are easy to deal with too. They just apply 3 different types of poison to the tank, slowing them, dealing damage to them, and reducing haste. None of these poisons are dangerous really, but the movement speed one can be annoying. So if you are a healer with a poison to spell, you should dispel it as often as possible. The last mob type before Deepbeard is these giant wave crashers. They will do a Rising Fury ability, stunning everyone for 1 second and dealing some damage. Each time they cast this, it will do more damage, so don't take too long to kill them. As with the rest of the dungeon, there are lots of neutral mobs all over the place, so try to be careful with your AoE. Eventually, you'll reach King Deepbeard.
When encountering this boss, you should start by spreading out, because he has an AoE ability which I will come back to later. The first ability the boss casts is Gaseous Bubbles, which is a debuff on players where you need to try and take damage to break it or it'll explode and do a massive AoE based on how much there's left on the debuff to the entire group. After that he'll cast Quake, which is an AoE ability and the reason you should be spread out, because it does a 5-yard cleave from every player it hits. After that he'll start casting Core of the Seas, which are some small circles and bubbles on the ground, and you should try and avoid them unless you have the debuff mentioned above, Gaseous Bubbles. In that case, try and take damage from it to break the debuff. He will also cast a tank mechanic called Ground Slam, which is basically a big overhead smash. You'll simply have to move away from it, even as a tank, to avoid taking damage. When the boss enrages at 30%, he'll do a lot of damage. So make sure you kill him off fast, maybe even save blood loss for that part. After that boss, we head down the ramp to face off the last boss, Wrath of Azshara. But before you can fight her, you need to finish off her minions, which is protecting her. They have a small set of abilities, some more dangerous than others. One of them is called Lightning Blast. It is simply a targeted single target spell that'll do. It is interruptible, but it doesn't do too much damage. Another one is the Aqua Spots, which is basically a small geyser under each player, and you'll simply just move out of it to not get shot up in the air. Third is the Arcane Bomb, which is a debuff on a player. The healer will need to dispel it, and you'll move away from it. The fourth ability they'll cast is the Storm. It's a small area around the boss, and you'll just move out, and you'll just move back in when the cast is over to tank them up. Fifth and last is the Magic Binding. It will root everyone in a certain range. I'm not sure how big the range is, but this mechanic can be somewhat deadly. You need to make sure you're positioned correctly so you don't get hit by any waves. It is dispellable, but you need to remember that your healer only is limited to a certain amount of dispels. So be careful and position yourself well before the cast finishes. After finishing off the last mob, the boss will be at 21% when you're gonna engage it. The boss itself can seem somewhat complicated at first, but there really isn't much to it. The first ability is a Massive Deluge, which is a massive pool in front of the boss. It does AoE damage and will knock you back if you stand at it. You'll simply just move out of it. After that, the boss will cast Arcane Bomb, which is the same mechanic we know from the previous mobs we just killed. Get dispelled and move away from it. While you're doing these mechanics, you'll have to dodge the tornadoes and some swirly pools on the grounds. It's not too major, but make sure to look out for it. At 10%, the boss will cast Cry of Wrath, and Cry of Wrath will empower the boss and give him 3 additional abilities. First off is the Violent Winds, which will slowly push you around. You can't really do much to it, but it will make dodging mechanics harder. Second, we have the Lightning Strike, which will inflict the ground and do damage to players within 4 yards. Again, you'll simply just move away from it. Third and finally, we have the Tidal Waves, which will be floating around the room and do damage to player who touches it. Just try and avoid them. This boss will only cast Raging Storm if there's no one in melee range, and this only happens if the tank gets hit by Massive Deluge and gets knocked away. Elsewise, this mechanic is nothing to worry about.
That concludes our alpha guide for the Eye of Azshara dungeon. Thanks for watching guys, and be sure to check out our other alpha guides. Bye guys.
Bye bye.